Y'all. So these notes are over the solving quadratics by square roots. They should be in your notes packet. Someone emailed me last night and said that they didn't get the notes packet. It should be on the table that's by where the white bins are that say like absent above them. I asked Miss Silva to double check on those, so please make sure that you have one. Ask the sub if they can look around for it if you can't find it, but I 100% know that they are in my room. So please make sure that you have the notes from yesterday. There were 2 lessons that I went over in yesterday's videos, so make sure you get those in your notes packet. And then this is the new lesson for today. So today, this video is going to be pretty short. I'm going to do like 1 or 2 problems from the practice assignment with you, and then you're going to work on the practice assignment for the rest of the time. So the method that you learned yesterday for solving was solving by factoring. That's one method of solving quadratics. You also learned how to solve by graphing. Now you're going to look at solving by using square roots. So this doesn't have anything to do with factoring anymore. You're just going to be solving an equation by taking a square root on both sides. So sometimes we solve a quadratic equation without factoring. Instead, we solve them using square roots. If a quadratic can be solved using square roots, then we can get everything. I don't even know what's supposed to go in these blanks. Just forget it. Just don't fill that part out. I don't really care about that. Okay. Let's look at the first example here. So you want to get the x squared term by itself first. So I don't want any numbers in front of it. So the 3 that's in front of that x squared, I need to get rid of it. Right now this is 3 times x squared. So to get rid of the 3 in the front, I'm going to undo that multiplication with division by 3 on both sides. 9 divided by 3 is 3. To get rid of the x squared, the opposite operation to squaring something is taking the square root of that. And whenever you take a square root, you need to put a plus and a minus sign in front of that square root symbol. So I'm going to take the square root of x squared, and then I'm going to put plus or minus the square root of 3. What you do to one side, you have to do to the other. So now this square root symbol and this 2 are going to cancel each other out, and you're just left with an x is equal to plus or minus the square root of 3. So that means that your x is either a positive root 3 or a negative root 3. And you don't have to give me a decimal for that. You can just leave it as the square root of 3. Okay, moving on to the next one. I'm not going to divide by anything here. I need to get rid of the plus 5 that's there. So I'm going to subtract 5 on both sides. Okay, and then I'm going to take the square root to get rid of the x squared. And I'm going to add that plus or minus in front of my square root of 9. So these cancel. The square root of 9 is 3. So my answers are either positive 3 or negative 3. Okay. On this example, that entire x minus 3 is being squared because it's in parentheses. So I'm going to take the square root of that entire quantity, and then I'm going to put plus or minus the square root of 9. So now these are going to cancel, and you have x minus 3 is equal to plus or minus 3 because the square root of 9 is 3. So this means that x minus 3 is either equal to a positive 3 or x minus 3 is equal to a negative 3. So you're splitting this out into 2 separate equations. You're going to solve both of those for x. So we get x equals 6 and x is equal to 0. On this one over here, I'm I want to get rid of that -2 that's in the parentheses first. If you want to think of it kind of like this, like ignore the x plus 4 that's in parentheses, the way that we solved this earlier was sorry, dividing both sides by -2 first. So we're going to do that same thing here. So I'm going to divide this by -2, divide this by -2. So these cancel. And you have x plus 4 squared. 8 divided by -2 is -4. And then now this problem looks like the last one we just did. You're going to take the square root on both sides. I'm going to put my plus or minus. With this problem, you notice that, excuse me, sorry. Notice that you have a negative sign underneath of a square root symbol. When we come back from Christmas break, we're going to learn about that. But for right now, if you get to a point where you see that negative sign under a square root, we're going to call that no solution. What you're going to learn eventually is that the square root of -4 is equal to, is equal to 2i. I is an imaginary number. But for right now, we're just going to say no solution because there's a negative sign under that radical symbol. Okay, this next question is a word problem. So relief package is released from a helicopter at 1,600 feet. The height can be modeled by this equation that's given here. H represents the height of the package in feet, and T represents the time in seconds. The pilot wants to know how long. So if it wants to know how long, that's talking about time. So that means I'm going to solve for time or solve for T. How long it will take for the package to hit the ground. When the package hits the ground, the height of that object is 0. So this is telling me that my H is equal to 0. Write the equation you're trying to solve and then solve it by taking a square root. So I'm going to rewrite my original equation. I'm going to replace my H with 0 because that's going to represent when the package hits the ground. And then I'm going to solve this equation for T. So I'm going to need to move some things around. So I want to get that -16t squared by itself first. So I'm going to subtract 1,600 from both sides. And then I want to get the t squared by itself. So I'm going to divide both sides by -16. So these cancel. A negative divided by negative is a positive. So this is positive 100. I'm going to take the square root of both sides, and I'm going to put my plus minus. So these cancel. So this is t is either equal to a positive or negative. The square root of 100 is 10. So the logical answer here is that t is equal to positive 10 because it's talking about time, and time cannot be negative. And this is time in seconds. So t is equal to 10 seconds. I'm just going to make a little note. Okay, just so if you look back at it, you know why we threw out the negative version of the answer. Okay, now I'm going to do 2 problems from your practice assignment for today. So you're done with the notes packet now. We're going to move on to the practice assignment. I'm going to do the first 2 problems in this same video, and then you're going to be working on that for the rest of class today. Okay, so this is the paper that I'm talking about. Make sure that you got a copy from the sub. These are just really what we've been doing in the notes, just a review of it. So some of these are super simple. I want to do a more difficult one with you. Let's try the bottom one down here. Okay, so you're trying to solve for n. So I want to get the n squared by itself first. So first step, I'm going to subtract 10 from both sides. And then to get that n squared by itself, I'm going to divide both sides by 9. 81 divided by 9 is 9. Then to get rid of that exponent of a 2, I'm going to take the square root of both sides. Don't forget your plus or minus sign. Those cancel, and we get plus or minus 3. And that would be your answer for that problem. This is the back of that same paper. Let's do this one. Okay, so same kind of process. I'm going to get everything away from those parentheses first. So I'm going to subtract 8 from both sides. Then I'm going to divide both sides by 9. You can use your calculator for the numbers. I know that they're big. I think this gives you 49. Okay, and then I want to get rid of that exponent of a 2. So I'm going to take the square root of both sides. That entire quantity in parentheses is going under the square root. And then I'm going to do plus or minus the square root of 49. So these are gone. Square root of 49 is 7. At this point, you're going to need to break this off into two separate equations, because this tells me that 2m minus 3 is either equal to a positive 7 or 2m minus 3 is equal to a negative 7. So you're going to solve both of those equations there for m, and you're going to end up getting two answers. Divide by 2. So one of my answers is that m is equal to 5. The other one is that m is equal to negative 2. Okay, so with all of these, isolate your squared term first. Take the square root, make sure you put your plus and minus sign. Break it off into two separate equations if you have to. If you don't have to, you can just leave the answers as is, okay? If you have any questions, please feel free to email me. You're going to be working on this today, and then I'm going to ask the substitute how they felt that you did and how far you got, and I might give you some extra time tomorrow. If not tomorrow, we're just going to keep moving on, okay? Have a great day.